Hi folks, in today's video I'm going to focus on mixing different styles of photography and if you should have different websites for different styles of photography. Welcome back to the channel guys, my name is Steve Gerard and I want to talk to you about mixing different styles of photography because over my career since like 2004, 2005, I have been shooting not just bands, but also weddings and portraits and all kinds of stuff, some of which you might think wouldn't really sit nicely alongside each other. One of the questions that's come up again and again over the years is, should I have a website that has weddings and families alongside the music stuff, which sometimes can be like the opposite end of the scale? Like I shoot a lot of metal bands and punk and hardcore, as well as like Beyonce and Rihanna and people like that. So do those different styles of photography belong together on a website? And I think, for me at least, yeah, they do. Now, I'll admit that shooting a band like Slayer is very different to shooting somebody's wedding. And there will be brides that come to my website looking for a wedding photographer and they might be put off because they see the bands on my website. But on the flip side, there's going to be brides that come to my website, they see my wedding photography, and if they like that, maybe they look at the other stuff that I shoot. They see that I shoot bands and music stuff. And if they're into their music, that can be something that sets me apart from other photographers for them. Also, the kind of clients that I typically really enjoy shooting their weddings, and they often go on to become friends, are the kind of people who are really into their music as well. So we have that connection, and connection is really important when you're trying to find somebody to shoot a wedding. If a couple are not really big music fans and they're put off by the music stuff on my website, then maybe we wouldn't be the best fit anyway. But for me personally, when I see those things on my website alongside each other, I see a consistency between the images, even though they're taken at very different circumstances, in very different locations and very different lighting situations often. For me, the thing that unites all these images is people and emotion, whether they're on stage rocking out, screaming their lungs out, or if they're in a wedding getting emotional because they're surrounded by all their favorite people and then marrying the person they want to spend their life with. It's all about people and emotion, and a very unique event at that specific time that I'm there with a camera. Also, I hope that people will see a consistency with the editing, with the way that I frame pictures and the compositions. The consistency throughout the editing and the way the picture were taken should all lead back to my style as a photographer. Also, I am a massive music fan, so the fact that I shoot music photography says a lot about me as a person and is all a part of my brand and all a part of my unique identity as a person and a photographer. And there can be overlaps between wedding photography and music photography. If you think about it, shooting a groom with his groomsmen for a portrait is not that much different from shooting a band with the lead singer at the front and the rest of the band next to him. So those guys just want to look cool and they want a good picture from that situation. So my music portraits and my wedding photography do have a little bit of an overlap there. If a bride and groom see that I photograph their favorite band, then sometimes that can be a good conversation starter. Like as an example, I had one guy, he wanted to book me for his wedding, but he just happened to mention that he was a big fan of a certain band that I'd shot. And so when they booked me for the wedding, as a little thank you, I sent them a print of one of the pictures that I'd taken of his favorite band, just as a little extra something that no other wedding photographer could have done. Now, you do have to be careful that you don't come across as a jack of all trades and master of none. So on my website, you won't see like food photography, landscape photography, too much commercial photography. There is weddings, families, portraits, and the music stuff. And the music stuff is kind of like hidden away a little bit more than the rest of the stuff because the music stuff doesn't make me as much money. It's not as big a deal for my business. It's just a big part of who I am as a photographer. I do realize that there's going to be a few people out there that will come to my website and because I shoot different things, they might see me as not being specialized enough in the area of photography that they actually want a photographer for. And that's fine. I'm kind of willing to take that hit a little bit because the plus side is that the people that do book me, they book me partly because of all the other things that I do and that personality that I have. And hopefully they feel a bit more of a connection there because of what I'm doing outside of wedding photography or whatever else it is. So what you have to decide is, what do you want your focus of photography to be? Do you want to shoot weddings and maybe wildlife photography? In which case, is there a connection between those two? I've been to weddings where there's definitely a connection. But if you're really interested in genres of photography that are very different from each other, let's say you want to shoot portraits, but you also want to shoot products, maybe those two things don't sit quite so well alongside each other on a website, and you might want to have a designated website for one and a separate website for the other so that you can target those people. So if you were looking for somebody who wants a product photographer, they're not going to see any of your portraits. They're just going to see exactly what they need, and you can market to that client specifically. For some people, even though they're looking for a wedding photographer, they might be more interested in finding a photographer who has a certain level of professionalism, a certain level of technique and an aesthetic to their work. And seeing the fact that I've photographed some of their favorite bands or somebody who's quite famous can sometimes give me just a little bit of extra credibility in certain people's eyes. Not in everybody, but in certain people. So whichever area of photography you decide you're going to go into, or whether you're already in that and you're looking at your website from an outside point of view, just imagine you are your ideal client looking at that website for the first time. What does it say to you instantly? And what does it say to you when you start to delve a bit deeper into the website? Is there consistency between the different styles, if you do different styles, in the editing, in the composition, in your use of color? And is there anything on your website which is going to break the consistency of the story you're trying to tell as a photographer? If you do decide that you're going to separate two different styles of photography into two separate websites, then that might mean you need to come up with two logos, two social media pages, two completely different brands. You're also going to have to maintain two different websites. You're going to pay for two different websites. It's just a little bit harder. Also, when it comes to SEO, search engine optimization, and people finding you, you're not just going to be competing with other photographers in your area. You're going to be competing with yourself because you've got two different websites under your name, or maybe under a different name. But you're just kind of thinning out the chances that people are going to find you on Google and know exactly what you are as a photographer and what you're going to do for them. Now, one thing that's happened to me over the years is that people have booked me for a wedding, and then I've ended up going to concerts with them. I've ended up shooting their friends' bands. I even ended up shooting the wedding of one of my favorite musical artists because I'd shot her in concert and I'd shot some portraits of her backstage. And we'd built up a relationship to the point where when she was getting married, I was the person she had in mind. So it can really, really benefit either way. So you've just got to work out how it's going to benefit you and what the pros and cons are of mixing those styles on one website. So I'm interested to know what you guys think. What do you think should be on a website? And if you shoot different genres, should they be separate or can you combine them together? Leave me a comment below. And if you found this video at least a little bit useful, then please hit the like button for me and subscribe if you want to see more. And we'll see you on the next one. All right. Cheers, guys. Bye.